This story of a twin is unlike anything you have ever heard of. Identical sisters born and raised in Wales who spoke to no one but each other for their entire lives. They were inseparable, yet they also had this deep-seated fear and loathing for each other. It's a story that not even psychiatrists today could unravel fully. A story full of twists and turns that will leave you wondering if they were actually cursed. Without further ado, let's dive into the mysterious and tragic tale of the Silent Twins. Gloria and Aubrey Gibbons are a couple from the Caribbean who migrated to the UK in the early 60s in search of a better life. Gloria was a housewife and Aubrey worked as a technician for the Royal Air Force. The couple had 3 children when Aubrey was deployed in Aden, Yemen in 1960, and 3 years later, on the 11th of April 1963, the Gibbons family was blessed with twin girls, June and Jennifer.
We were very happy then. Quite happy. We knew we were twins at that age. We had each other. We didn't need anybody else, really. We had each other.
But as the girls grew older, things weren't as they seem. As soon as the twin entered the speaking age, they used a made-up language that no one else in their English-speaking household could understand.
We had our language. Me and my sister spoke. We knew what we were saying. My mother had to guess what we were saying. And she was one that was a bit worried about us.
Adding to the intrigue, the twins refused to speak to anyone except each other. While it's not unusual for twins to create their own language during childhood, most eventually outgrow this phase. However, the Silent Twins remained trapped in their private world for over 30 years, refusing to communicate with anyone else. As you can imagine, this became a massive problem when they entered the real world. And to make matters even worse, they were the only black students in their elementary school, making them easy targets for bullies.
We were different. We were twins, and we were a different colour. So they picked on us. We were like that. And we didn't speak to anybody. They got like extra strange. We didn't speak to anybody. And they kept saying, why won't they speak? Can they speak English? Why can't they talk? And the more they said that, the more we shut up.
June and Jennifer actually felt guilty for being a burden to the people around them, and they apparently blamed themselves for the curse they had to endure together. They would have a ritual where they would kneel down by the bed and ask God to forgive them. They would open the Bible and start chanting like crazy. They would pray to Him to give them the strength to talk to their family, but it was hard. Their family and school officials were understandably worried about their future, so they sought the help of a professional speech therapist. But despite her best effort, the therapist was unable to break through the twins' barrier of silence. However, she sensed something mysterious and unsettling about the twins that nobody in their circle noticed, which would become consistent with future reports about their behavior. This is what she said. Jennifer sat there with an expressionless gaze, but I felt her power. The thought entered my mind that June was possessed by her twin. She could sense that June wanted to speak to her, but it was as if Jennifer's presence is keeping her from doing so. At this point, the Gibbons family was running out of options, so they decided to take the matters into their hand. They decided to separate the twins and enroll them in different schools, hoping that this would encourage them to develop their own identities. However, this experiment turned out to be a complete disaster. Far from becoming more independent, the girls retreated even further into their own world, almost slipping into a catatonic state. June, in particular, became incredibly difficult to manage.
She would sit crying in a sort of catatonic state with liquid from her nose and her eyes and her mouth hanging in a great beard down to here, with the unit staff mopping her face, not speaking, not going to the toilet. I mean, obviously, we had to say, enough's enough.
It was a terrifying scene, and it quickly became clear that separating the twins had only made things worse.
When we were 16, we were in our bedroom, and we weren't mixing like other teenagers. going out, nightclubbing and going to discos. We wondered where we'd end up. We wondered what would happen to us if we didn't speak.
The twins' life may have seemed like a dead end, with their inability to communicate and their erratic behavior causing concern. However, a glimmer of hope arrived when
Happy Christmas.
their parents gifted them a journal.
Stephanie now has a new Royal Jetstar electric typewriter to help her make the most of her time.
It was a turning point for the girls who found their passion in writing. So much so that they enrolled in a mail-order writing course. Their writing was not only a form of self-expression, but it also gave them a chance to experience a slice of normality that they desperately craved. It wasn't long before their writing caught the attention of publishers, and one of their novels, The Pepsi Cola Addict, made it to print. However, like anything else, a darker reality lingered in their writing. When you carefully read the stories they had written, they all had a dark and twisted tone, centering specifically around young, attractive people committing heinous crimes in Malibu. While their writing provided a glimmer of hope for their loved ones that there was a possibility that they could overcome their curse, but it also raised concerns as it provided a glimpse into their troubled minds. As the twins approached adulthood, their passion for writing was no longer enough to distract them from spiraling into a world of deviant activities. They began experimenting with drugs and alcohol, leading to a culminating moment of terror when they went on a spree of arson attacks. They were apprehended and admitted to Broadmoor, a maximum security hospital for the criminally insane. There, they lived a life of misery, trapped in a world of madness with no hope of escape. They were alone. That is, until a journalist by the name of Marjorie Wallace stumbled upon their story.
Have you ever felt on the edge of a nervous breakdown that your world is falling apart or that someone you care for is in turmoil and despair?
Marjorie plays such a pivotal role in their lives that if it wasn't for her, the Silent Twins wouldn't exist because they would have probably spent their lifetime in Broadmoor. She'd heard about the twins' notorious arson spree and she had to reach out to the Gibbons family. She was taken aback when she was brought by their parents to their bedroom because what she found was a twin who was severely misunderstood, who had such an imaginative life and yet were dismissed by the society as zombies. When Wallace finally met them, she was delighted to hear the girls actually wanted to speak to her. She was the missing piece in their puzzle, a key that could unlock the doors to the outside world. With her exposure and connections, Marjorie had the power to give the twins a voice, a chance to showcase their writings to the world. For years, Wallace began visiting them regularly, and slowly, she started to uncover the mystery of their curse. The twins were actually harboring a lot of hatred for one another. The speech therapist's premonition of the twins was right. June believed that she was possessed by her sister, whom she referred to as a dark shadow over her. Meanwhile, Jennifer was the dominant twin, and in her diary, she described them as fatal enemies, painting a haunting portrait of June as a face of misery, deception, murder. As Wallace spent more time with them, she began to sense that June longed to speak freely, but she was constantly overpowered by Jennifer's presence. With Marjorie's help, which took a decade in the making, the girls were finally permitted to move to a far less intensive institution located in Wales at Caswell Clinic. When things were finally looking up for the twins, something sinister was brewing between the twins that baffled Marjorie and the doctors to this day. In an interview with NPR, this is what Marjorie had to say.
I took my daughter in, we went through all the doors, and then we went into the place where the visitors were allowed to have tea, and we had quite a jolly conversation to begin with. And then suddenly, in the middle of the conversation, Jennifer said, Marjorie, I'm going to have to die. And I sort of laughed. I sort of said, well, don't be silly, you're 31 years old, you know, you're just about to be freed from Broadmoor, why are you going to have to die? You're not ill. And she said, because we've decided.
Wallace immediately alerted the doctors of what she heard, and the doctors assured her that they will be supervised throughout. The morning the girls left Broadmoor, Jennifer started to feel unwell. Jennifer put her head on June's shoulder and whispered, "At long last, we're out." As they watched the Broadmoor gates close from their transport vehicle, she entered some kind of coma, and less than 12 hours later, she passed away. When a doctor finally intervened once they arrived in Wales, it was already too late. Jennifer Gibbons was pronounced dead at 6:15 p.m.
I was quite devastated when I knew she was dead, and she's just gone. Wasn't there anymore.
Wallace recalled visiting June several days after Jennifer's death and finding her in good spirits and willing to really sit and talk. June mysteriously became normal. She was finally speaking as if the 30 years she and her sister went through didn't actually happen. She explained to Marjorie how Jennifer's passing had given her the opportunity to finally be free. Now that Jennifer is finally gone, the one who lives will be responsible to live for the other. The story of the Silent Twins is one that captivates the imagination and defies explanation. Their story also reminds us of the importance of understanding and compassion in mental health care, as well as the power of individual strength and resilience. It's a story that has inspired books, documentaries, and even a movie, and continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day.